Hi everyone, Anthony Morganti here. You probably have already heard that recently On1 Software released a new version of their flagship product, On1 Photo Raw, appropriately called On1 Photo Raw 2026. In today's video, I'm going to do my best to get you up and running with On1 Photo Raw 2026 as quickly as possible. Also, on my website, I'll have available for free this video along with two more videos where I'll delve a little deeper into On1. Included in that free download will be all of the raw files that I use in those videos so that you could work along at home and a free sampler pack of presets. I'll have a link to all of that free stuff in the description below this video. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, as you can see, I have On1 Photo Raw 2026 open. When you first start using it, it's probably going to look pretty much like this for you as well. You need to get some images into On1 to start working on them. And one of the many cool things about On1 Photo Raw is that you do not need to go through a formal import process in order to get images into it to start working on them. You can just navigate to wherever they are on your system and start working on them. Now you can see I'm in what's called the Browse panel, and I'm in this Browse tab. And at the top, I have some favorite locations. It's going to show your desktop, and it's going to show any cloud services you have. I have Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive, and that's going to show your Pictures folder. Below that, you'll see local drives. Now I'm working on an iMac. Of course, an iMac has a Macintosh hard drive, so that's there. And also on my system, I have plugged in an external hard drive that I've called Pictures. And you can see that showing up there as well. I have pictures on my Pictures hard drive. So to get to them, I could just roll this open, and you can see on this Pictures hard drive, I have a folder that I've called Photos. If I roll that open, you can see inside of that folder, I have another folder that I've called Erie Basin Marina. If I roll that open, you can see there's nothing left. This is the folder that has all the images. Just click on it, and there are the images. And you can see they just show up right there, and I could start working on them. Now, I could vary the size of these thumbnails down here with this slider, like this. And I could go to a different view. I could click here and just look at a single image, then use the arrow keys to go through the images like this. Or if I want that film strip at the bottom, I could go to this little drop down here and choose this option. Now I have the film strip down here, and then I could still just use the arrow keys to go through the images or click on a specific image in the film strip to look at it above. I could vary the size of the film strip by just hovering between the film strip and the image above, and I could make the film strip larger or smaller. There's also another view here. If I go to this little drop down again, you can see there's a compare view. With the compare view, I still have the film strip, and I could just click on more than one image in the film strip by holding in the command key on my Mac control key on a PC, and I'll be able to compare images. And I could do as many as I like. So let's do like 6 images. You can see all 6 are there. Now, I personally prefer to use the view that has the film strip at the bottom. So single image with the film strip. So I could now go through these images and cull them. But before I do that, what if you were out taking pictures and you have a bunch of pictures on your memory card of your camera? Do you have to then, outside of On1, take them off the memory card, put them somewhere on your system, then navigate to them inside of On1? Well, you could do it that way. It's pretty easy to do it that way. Or if you prefer, you could just import them directly off the memory card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this CF Express card. It's from my Nikon Z8. And I'm going to plug it into my computer. Once my computer recognizes it, I can go through a formal import process from within On1 and get these images off this memory card into On1. Let me show you. Go up to File, down to Import from Device. When you do that, it will automatically find the device, and you can see that it has Nikon Z8 right here, and it has all these images. They look underexposed, but I was shooting into the sun and I didn't want to blow out the sky, so I purposely underexposed many of them so I wouldn't blow out the sky. With that said, if it didn't find your memory card, or if you have more than one memory card plugged into your computer, you could go to this dropdown and choose the specific memory card. But in this case, it found them. You'll notice next to that, it has eject when done, but that's grayed out. That's because it's not able to eject a CF Express card. You have to do that manually. It's like that with all Macintoshes, with all applications, from what I understand. I'm not sure if it's like that with Windows computers. It will be able to auto-eject an SD card, but for CF Express, no. You have the option to not import any duplicates, so you'd have that checked. You can see none of these have been imported before, so they all have little check marks on them. That means that one's going to be imported. If I don't want to import a specific image, say I don't like this one, I could just click that check mark and remove it, so that one won't be imported, or that one won't be imported, or that one won't be imported, and so on. I also have the option over here to check all or check none, but I'll check all. Now, I want them all imported, so I have it set up the way I want it, but where are we going to put them? That's where this right side comes in. We go over here and you'll see it will have your last destination. In this case, it was a folder that I called Niagara Falls. I don't want them to go in that folder. That folder isn't there even. So if I click this little drop down, I would go down to choose. Then I could navigate to where I want them. Now, I want them on this pictures hard drive inside of this photos folder, and I don't want them in the Erie Basin Marina folder. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this new folder Outer Harbor, because that's where this place is. So it's called Outer Harbor. We'll click create and we'll click open. Now that's where they're going. Now I do have the option of having On1 create a subfolder. I could click here and give it a name. A secondary folder, even, I could click there and use this drop down to choose a secondary folder. That gets a little confusing. Don't need to do that. It's easier to just go up here to destination, go to the drop down, pick choose, then navigate with your Finder window to where you want them, create the folders as you need to, as I created that Outer Harbor folder, and send them there. Now you can even go to this generate subfolders and use tokens. This gets a little confusing though. For example, right now I have it showing that it would be in a folder year, month, day. In truth, that's actually not going to happen. What will happen is inside of the Outer Harbor folder, if I have this checked, there'll be a folder for year, so it'll say 2025. Inside of that folder will be a month, so it'll be October 10. Then inside of that folder will be day, so today's the 14th, so it would be the 14th. Then inside of that folder would be all these images. I don't want that at all. So it gets a little confusing. I recommend you don't really worry about that. It's much easier to just, from this folder option at the top, navigate to where you click choose, navigate to where you want them, and then create the folders as needed. And then you could just throw them in there. Now, if you need to rename the images, you can just click this. You have these tokens again. You could go with file name. You could go to add, if you want date and time and stuff like that. I never rename my folder, my images, I should say. So I always have that off. I just use the camera names. Now, metadata. I always add metadata in that I add my name and my copyright. I also enable keyword AI. What this does is On1 during the import process will look at the scene and it will use AI to determine what's in the scene. For example, there's a sculpture here. So we'll see there's a sculpture and it will create a keyword sculpture. It sees sky, it will add sky. It sees clouds, it will add clouds. It sees grass, it will add grass. So it'll automatically create these keywords and enter the keywords in the metadata so that you could more easily search for them and find them later. So I always have that checked. Now there's other things you could do with metadata. Open up more and you could see that you could, during the import process, give them a description, a star rating, a color label, XF data or EXIF data, and so on, name, address, all that stuff. So you go through there and you could do all of this if you want to. The thing though, is if you don't want to do this every single time, is you could create an import preset. So first come in, set this up the way you want it. Say you always want it to have your name and address, and you want your email address and your website in there. So you have that all filled out here. Go down here where it says import preset, and then save it as a new preset. Give it a name. And then what will happen is at the top here, you'll see presets. You could just choose your preset and it will automatically fill in that information that you just typed in. So you don't have to go through and type it in during every single import. Now, personally, I make it simple. I just have my name and my copyright along with enable keyword AI. Now, photo settings, some people like to edit the image as they come in. So if you do that, click that on, go to this drop down and choose a preset that you want applied to the image as it's imported. I personally want to manually edit my images. I don't want to apply a preset unless I want to do it later, but I'm not going to do it during import. Also, you could edit the capture date. This comes in handy if you have the date and time incorrect in your camera, or maybe you live in one time zone, traveled to a different time zone and took photos, and forgot to switch your camera to that new time zone. Well, you could fix it all here. Just hit this on. You could change it to a specific date and time. You could adjust it by time zone. So let's say I live in California, which is the Pacific time zone, and I traveled to Buffalo and took these images, but I forgot to change the time in my camera. I would go to adjust time zone plus 3 hours. So it's super easy. Now there is another option here that you probably will never have to do, is set to creation date. If another application for some reason changed the date of the images, the creation date is still in there in the metadata. So what you could do is just click this set to creation date and it will reset the date of the images to the date you created them. In this case, I don't need to do any of this because I always make sure that the date and time is correct in my camera. So that's one thing I don't have to worry about. So I'm ready to import these. So I'll just click import and you'll notice then that they'll be put in this folder that I created called Outer Harbor, and they'll come in one by one. Now, because I'm using keyword AI, it's coming in a little slower than you might anticipate because it is looking at the image and it's determining what is in the scene and it's creating those keywords and it's adding those keywords to the keyword list automatically. So it's maybe taking a little longer, but we'll let that do it. It will do it in the background. Let's go to that Erie Basin Marina folder and let's go to my view down here that I prefer with the single image view with the film strip at the bottom. Now I like to go through the images to determine which ones I like to or I want to edit. There's a number of different ways you could do this. A lot of photographers do it different ways. I just use favorite flags or these favorite hearts. I like to call them pick flags because the keyboard shortcut to favorite the image is the P key. So if I tap the P key on my computer, you'll notice now this little heart is on. So that's a favorite. If I want to remove the favorite, hit the U key to unpick it. So pick P, unpick U. If I want to reject it, like I don't like it and I want to delete it, hit the X key, and then you can see it has an X there. So that's just telling me I don't like this image at all. If I want to remove that X, hit the U key again. So just to unpick it. Now, personally, I rarely ever reject an image, like hit the X key, only if maybe I had my camera at my side and I accidentally took a picture, something like that, then I'll get rid of it. So what I'll do is I'll go, I like this image, I'll hit the P key. Now, some people prefer to use star ratings or color labels. You could just come down here and click on 3 stars, click on the 3-star again to undo it. You could use the keyboard shortcut 3 to give it 3 stars, or 4 for 4 stars, or 5 for 5 stars. You could also give it color labels. You could click here and you could give it, let's say, a red color label. You also could use keyboard shortcuts again. If you want red, red is 6, 7 is yellow, and so on. You can see 8 is green, 9 is blue, and 0 is purple. So I wanted this purple, I'd hit the 0 key. You can see it's a purple color label. I don't use color labels much, but really it's up to you, whatever's more comfortable for you, how you could figure out which ones you like, which ones you don't like, which ones you want to edit right away. Back a long time ago, I used to give things pick flags, and I'd go through them a second time and I'd give them star ratings. A 5-star rating meant I wanted to edit it right away. And then maybe 1-star rating was maybe I'll edit that someday in the future. Who knows? But anyway, I'll just go through the images. I could use the arrow keys. And whenever I like an image, say I like this one, I'll hit the P key. And I'll keep doing it till, let's say, I like that one, I'll hit the P key. Like that one, hit the P key. Just go through them. And this one I like, I'll hit the P key. Now, let's say that I want to edit this image. Well, that's where this edit panel comes in. So we could just come over here and click on Edit Photo, and it will bring us to the Edit panel. Now, by default, you'll probably have this left panel open. These are the presets. I have mine closed, but you could come in and choose a preset. You can see they're in categories. So we have cinema, cold mountain, colored film, color grade, and so on. Personally, I don't want to use a preset, so I'll close this down just to give myself a little more room. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll notice that we have the Develop tab. This is where most of your work will be at the beginning. You're going to use this tab to start your edit. Then we have the Local tab, where we're going to be doing masking and local adjustments. That's what I'll be covering in the second video in this kind of mini course that, again, will be available for free on my website. So masking will be covered in the second video. Then we have effects, which I'll do a few effects in this video, and we could do masking with effects, and I'll cover that in that other video that will be on my website. And then if you have an image that you want to replace the sky, you would do this with the Sky tab. Or if you have a portrait and you need to edit someone's skin and their eyes and so on, you would use this Portrait tab. Now, since this is a landscape image, I'm not going to worry about portrait, and it has a sky like, so I'm not worried about sky. So we're starting in the Develop. If you're in a hurry, just click on Brilliance AI. Brilliance AI will use AI to examine the image, and it actually will create masks and do a separate edit for the sky, an edit for the subject, an edit for the water. Whatever it finds, it will vary from image to image to image. Now, because it is using AI, it sometimes will take a little bit of a long time to do your edit. You may not like the edit. You may like the edit, but it's too strong. You could come to this amount slider and pull it down or push it up. In this case, I don't care for it. And in this case, I'm not going to do it at all. So I'm going to keep Brilliance AI off. What I will do is go to Tone and Color. This is where most of the heavy lifting is done. So from here, I'm going to do just a normal edit. And you're familiar with other applications, other editing application. You can see that the controls are pretty similar here. We have an exposure slider, contrast slider, highlights. I'm going to pull highlights down just a touch. It has midtones. I skip that usually, and I go to shadows and I open those up. Then I'll go to midtones and adjust that either up or down to taste, I guess you would say. Then I get a white and black point. And the way I do it is I hold in the J key. J is in Jack. When I hold in the J key, it's turning on the clipping indicators. And if I move the white slider too far, it's not happening, but you would see red come on the screen. For example, hold in that J key, then you see that red come on the screen as I move exposure up. That means I'm blowing out the highlights, and I don't like to blow out the highlights. So I'll reset that by just double clicking on the word exposure. But I can push this all the way up and I don't see any red at all. So that looks pretty good. I'll go to blacks, hold in that J key again and pull this down, and eventually you'll see blue come on the screen. That means I'm crushing the shadows in those areas. I don't mind crushing shadows, so that's all right. So I'll just crush the shadows a little bit. So I like that. It has a lot of tonal range in the image. I have absolute black to almost absolute white. And the reason why I don't like absolute white in the image, because if I did print this, no ink would get put down there at all. There wouldn't be any detail at all. So I prefer to have just the tiniest bit of ink put in if possible. So that's why I don't like clipping the whites. So with that, I'll move down. I could do structure and haze. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to instead use an effect for that. Then we could go down a little further and we have the temperature tint. I think the white balance is fine. Saturation and vibrance I could do as well, but I actually am not going to do that here. I think I'm going to use an effect for that as well. We have noise sharpening. If we roll this open, you'll notice there's no noise AI. In this case, this was shot at relatively low ISO. I think ISO 64. You can see right there, ISO 64. So I don't need to worry about noise in this image. But if I did shoot at a higher ISO, I would definitely use no noise AI to get rid of the noise. But in this case, again, don't need to worry about it. I'm not going to do any of this sharpening at all. It's pretty sharp. Lens corrections, I always turn this on. You can see the difference. So turn that on. You can see that it found the Nikon Z 24-70 f/2.8 lens. So it found the correct lens. We're good to go. Transform is if you had a building, you were shooting architecture or something, and the building was distorted for any reason because you used a wide angle lens and had the camera tilted up. You would come in and use the transform tools to fix that. Now, in this case, don't need to worry about that either. Now, very quickly, I would be remiss if I just didn't mention over on the left-hand side, we do have some tools. We have a crop tool. So I could open the crop tool here. And let's just say I want this lower rule of thirds line to be right at the horizon. So with that crop tool open, I could come in and pull down from the top, but I don't want it to distort. I want to keep the original ratio of 3:2. So what I'll do is I'll go to the aspect ratio drop down and I'll change that to the original ratio. So I'm not going to distort the image in that manner. And I'll pull this down. And I also want the lighthouse right on the left vertical rule of thirds line. So I'll move this to the right. So I have this crop pretty much the way I want it. I also have the option to use other overlays beside rule of thirds. You can see there's grid, diagonal, triangle, and so on, golden ratio, golden spiral. So use whatever you like to use. In this case, I'll stay with that rule of thirds. And then once I'm satisfied with my crop, I'll just click this little blue check mark over here and I did the crop. Also, you notice there's some other tools here. There's this Super Select AI tool, which helps you select very specific parts of the image so that you could do edits to those parts. I cover that in the second video when I go into the masking. And then you have some other masking tools here and so on. I'll go into these in more detail in the other videos I'll be doing that, again, are going to be available for free on my website. So, all right, I kind of like my edit so far, but it's still not quite right. So I want to add some effects to it. So I'm going to go over to effects. And one effect that I love is this one effect that will help you really bring out some texture and sharpness in the image. So I'm going to go to Add Filter, and this specific effect that I'm talking about is called Dynamic Contrast right here. So we'll add that. And by default, it's going to add this natural style. You can see that it just adds this right away. There are some other styles you could choose from. There's surreal, there's soft. You can go to the drop down, and I think there's a couple more here: texture enhancer and grunge contrast. I don't like any of those. What I tend to do is I just let it do the default natural. Then I work the sliders from the bottom up. That's the way I like to do it. So I'll move like large to the right, medium to the right a little bit, and even add a little more of this small to the right. Now I want to add another filter, so we're going to go to Add Filter, and this time I want to add a color enhancer. So we'll go to Color Enhancer, and you can see that we have this. It has, like the Dynamic Contrast filter, it has some styles going across the top. So you could choose like a fall, sky. You can see what it does. But with these, I'm not going to choose any of these. Instead, what I want to do here is I just want to add some saturation. So we'll go back to auto, reset this. I just want to add saturation like that. Then finally, I want to add one more filter, and I want to add a vignette. So it's right here. And there's some styles across the top. You'll notice that most of these effects, these filters, will have styles going across the top. There's a subtle vignette. There's a strong vignette. A lot of people like the big softy vignette. There's edges. There's a lot more under this drop down, so you could choose something if you want white. You have some white vignettes. Personally, what I like to do is I usually pick strong or big softy. Strong, but strong is too strong, so then I'll go and then I'll modify it by moving the sliders like that. That actually looks pretty good. And actually, that is my edit. Now, once you have the image edited, you probably want to share it with the world. So to share it with the world, you're going to need to export it. To export it, hold in the Shift key and tap the E key, and you'll bring up the export dialog. On the left-hand side, you'll have some export presets. You could see if I wanted to export it as a JPEG that is 1,200 pixels on the long edge, I could just choose this preset. If I want to do the original file, choose that preset, and so on. But typically, I don't use presets. I export for what I need to export to. So in this case, I'm going to go up to the preset dropdown for the name, and I'm going to use a custom name and sequence. So I have a custom name, and a sequence. So I could come in here and change the custom name to Lighthouse. And you can see a sample is up above. I have Lighthouse, and then it has 00000. Now, I don't want that. So we're going to go to the drop down and we're going to change the sequence number to a 2-digit number. So it's going to be Lighthouse 01. And I could add tokens to this if I wanted to, the file name, date and time, if I wanted there, a sequence number, metadata, and so on. So as it is now, I have it set up. It's going to say Lighthouse and it's going to be 01. Now I want it to actually have a space and a dash and a space. So then it's spaced out a little bit. That's just the way I want it to do it. And then I want it to go on my desktop into a folder called My Export, which it will create. If I have an existing photo there, I want to keep both so that it will automatically rename the second export so it doesn't clash with the original export. Do I need to generate any subfolder and put it into a subfolder? No. Do I want to show it in Finder after I'm done? Do I want it to create a zip archive when I'm done? Do I want to open it in, say, Lightroom or something like that when I'm done? No, I don't need it to do that. Do I need it to run a script? No, I don't really need it to do that. So we'll just have it open up in Finder when I'm done. What file type? It's showing JXL, but I want to save it as a normal everyday JPEG. I'm going to have the quality at 100. You'll notice what this area will change depending on what file type you use. So if I go to TIFF, you can see there's different options there. And if I go to DNG, there's different options and so on. But I want that JPEG with 100% quality. I want to use the sRGB color space. And then I want to resize it. And typically when I export images from On1, it's for my website or for my newsletter. In those instances, I always have the long edge set at 2000. Then it will automatically resize the short edge accordingly so that it keeps the same aspect ratio. So I'm going to do that. Resolution, doesn't really matter what you put there. I'll just leave it at 300. You have the option to not enlarge it. So if you accidentally put 20,000 in here, it won't do it. I don't ever sharpen on export because I did the sharpening here with dynamic contrast. So I really don't need to worry about any sharpening. I'm not going to do that here at all. You can do some manual sharpening down here if you wanted to. So you have the option to use the drop down or just to go to this manual sharpen sliders, but I'm not doing that at all. Metadata, what do you want to include? Now, if you do have your name and address and phone number in here, you may not want to include all that. So you may want to come in here and uncheck some boxes or not include any metadata at all. It's up to you. Now, as you noticed when I imported these images, I didn't have a lot of that info here, so I don't need to worry about that. And you do have the option to do some watermarking if you want. I don't believe in watermarks. I don't like them, so I'm not going to do that at all. So no watermarks. So as it is now, it's going to be saved to my desktop. It's going to be Lighthouse space dash space 01. And it might start with 00. I can't remember if it does or doesn't, but we'll just click export. And you'll see that it's exporting in the background and it opened up and there it is 00. And there is my exported image, just like that. Now I could take this, share it to social media, or if I wanted, as I mentioned, to use it on my website or in my newsletter, I can. So that's it. That's my kind of quick start video. I apologize if I went a little bit too quickly, but hopefully that will help you get started using On1 Photo Raw 2026. Again, on my website, I'll have this video along with 2 more where, again, I'll delve a little deeper into some of the features of On1. You could download all that for free. Included in that free download will be all of these images and any other images that I use in those videos, along with a free sample pack of On1 presets. Thank you, everyone who watches my videos. I really do appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.